of calming. That's how you know if you gotta go and get it, get to win and not conquer. I had to go out and get it without a sponsor. Kept it real, never crooked, yeah, that's honor. Now I can go out and get it how I want to. Hashtag bless, I choose.
What is up, YouTube? What is up, Rumble? Welcome back to the Ryan Matta Show. Thanks you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Today is April 9th. It is 10:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are going to get into all things Bitcoin, starting your own business, the American dream. And I'm going to be joined by my friend Ben. Ben, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. Beautiful morning today.
Man, Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend. I got Ben's profile up over here, and if you go down into the show notes, you can see Ben Just Man over here on X, and please swing down there and follow him. He's also starting his own company. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So make sure you guys swing over there and give him a follow. Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am a Bitcoiner and a winemaker. I started a winery 5 years ago on my parents' property. They were growing some grapes at high altitude in Colorado. And so I decided to take over, scale things up a bit, and start making natural wine, which came along with me discovering Bitcoin. So I've kind of turned my winery into a Bitcoin winery, selling wine for Bitcoin, having Bitcoin on all my labels, and just kind of using wine as a way to spread the message of sound money and help educate my community and the people that like my wine.
Man, that's such a cool journey. To walk me back to the beginning. When was the first? Did you start your winery and then discover Bitcoin, or did you discover Bitcoin and then try to incorporate it in the winery?
I started the winery first, but it takes about 2 years for the red wine to age. So I still hadn't sold any wine, and it was still very much lacking proof of concept when I discovered Bitcoin. So pretty much concurrently, if you're looking back on the history of my life, but realized that I wanted to start my own business as what I wanted to do with my life. And my dad had made wine as a hobby. So it was kind of a really low hanging fruit for someone who had never made wine before to start a winery.
Mhm.
But I kind of just had the idea, like, my dad figured it out, and we have good grapes. I'm sure I can figure this out myself. So kind of just jumped in for it. And a year in, found out Bitcoin because I moved home and moved in with a Bitcoiner. And I had been questioning the fiat financial system ever since the 2019 repo rate spike, because all of my savings accounts had their interest rate go to zero. And that was my aha moment of, you can't keep up with inflation just by saving, because I expected low 2% inflation. That got taken out from under me with my interest rates not being able to keep up from that. And it took moving in with a Bitcoiner to start going down that rabbit hole. But since I went down it with a personal finance, what is money lens, it led me just pretty much straight to Bitcoin, no altcoins, and have been pretty focused on that and driven to learn about it ever since.
And to walk me through the repo in 2019, what was it that sparked your interest? I know what you're talking about, but I didn't back then. So how were you ahead of the curve on that one? And how did you start putting two and two together so quick?
Well, I didn't know what it was either, and it's only in hindsight that I can actually say it was the repo spike. But basically, I was really into personal finance to the point where I was having my friends over for lunch to help them with their personal finance, because I had run out of things to do with my personal finance. So like budgeting, getting the right credit cards, the right savings accounts, just everything low risk. I'm not talking about stock picking or anything. I learned pretty early that I didn't really want to be taking those risks and buying stocks, but just doing everything to get that baseline and then expecting performance on top to take me through. So the biggest thing was have 3 to 6 months savings in a savings account and have that at a high interest savings account. 2% was what I was able to get at the time, and that would keep up with inflation. I'm not worried about making money there. And so I knew that inflation was just a negative. I understood that personal finance world, but it was when that went to zero and it was just, oh, my savings account is a melting iceberg now. that was really I need to start looking for different things. And I didn't know I was looking for Bitcoin. Happened to actually be living with a different Bitcoiner at the time. And um, he and I kind of just had disagreements politically. And I kind of thought his Bitcoin thing was this like super right wing thing that I'll never get into, or super risky. And so it took moving back home when I started the winery in with a different Bitcoiner to really get my brain going in that way.
Walk me through that. So you guys had different political alignings. What were yours? What was his? And what were you? How were you raised? I guess what gave you your political standpoint, and why did you have it? Do you think?
Well, I was raised in a very conservative place, but with very liberal parents. And
Mhm.
so that kind of probably pushed me deeper into the liberalism because I was different. I was doing this and I had to, dive into my identity. So ended up going to Colorado College, which is weirdly another tiny liberal bastion in an extremely conservative city of Colorado Springs. And that pushes you deeper and deeper into it. And I was a senior in college when Bernie's first election in 2016 came in. So that kind of got me curious about socialism, I guess. And then even through 2020 was just so pushed away by Trump with my surroundings and his brashness, I guess, that it pushed me even more towards it. But I was living with this friend from 2018 to 2020, so I was going through that time. He was son of a retired veteran, definitely more conservative. Listened to Joe Rogan, and I was like, I like this guy. We have very similar morals, but we're not going to talk politics, and I think we disagree here. Since he's like become an incredible friend after I've understood Bitcoin. But when you have those differences, it's just there's certain things that you're just not going to dive into because you're just thinking, oh, that's his thing. But um, in hindsight, it's obvious, but it just took me moving home to in with a guy that I considered extremely smart with a lot of similar worldviews to me for me to actually start diving in. And it's such a deep rabbit hole, Bitcoin, and you can go as deep as you want. You can dive into it. I got into the point where like I was questioning everything in my life, and it like completely flipped my life around to where now I'm like feeling tricked by the previous beliefs I had. I mean,
Yeah.
I've turned into at least not an anarchist by any sense of any meaning, but at least a minimalist when it comes to state. And the biggest thing is just take away the money printer and let's see where things land before we can figure out what the best form of government is. But uh, basically, if we're talking political views, I've been completely flipped on my head, upside down, and
Yeah.
all of that just came from the understanding of money.
Man, I think so many people are going to have that same aha moment, right? You talked a little bit about you went to Colorado University, which I assume is probably liberal. I assume that they instilled a lot of values in you or beliefs that you had because you were thinking that somebody that was teaching you a certain way to believe a certain thing and you aligned your values with that. And then you quickly realize that when you start learning about money and how finances work, that it changed your outlook. And then you started looking more into it and you're like, wait, some of those things I was learning didn't make sense. And it's all because of Bitcoin. Walk me through that
Mhm.
process with the Bitcoin. Like when you first started to look into it, and what was like the first thing that like really made you go, wait, okay, I guess my values do align more with this than that. What was that moment? You know?
So, I mean, so this friend and I would discuss like geopolitics and all these things, and I always initially was thinking like, okay, well, Bitcoin I understand as a hedge against the system, and it took me a while to realize that that hedge was just a guarantee, like they're going to debase, and so that I was just remember specifically battling with what is inflation, what is money, what do prices look like with a fixed monetary um, amount of monetary units. And I was working in the vineyard listening to Robert Breedlove and Jeff
Yes.
Booth. They're like 10 hours.
Uh-oh, folks, we lost him. He'll be right back and give him just a second. Man, what a great conversation. There he is. He's back, my man. Give me one
Oh
second.
my God,
You're back.
prices decrease. Like it's so obvious to me now. I can't see it any other way. But we're taught that prices need to increase for demand to stay there, because no one's going to buy anything if prices are just going to decrease in the future, which is just ridiculous. It's just maybe we're not like such a consumerist society. But that was my real aha moment to flip me to totally understand it. Unfortunately, I had my aha moment of, oh my God, that's what Bitcoin is, at the final $55,000 peak, right before it dropped to 30,000 in 2021. So my timing to be like, oh my God, I need to get as much of this as possible, go all in, was both bad and incredible, because it was a test for my conviction to go all in at 55,000, have it drop 50% within a week, and have the gumption to say, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I have to buy more. Like, I'm so lucky it dropped in price. I can actually stack a meaningful amount of sats now.
Man, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, you cut out there for a second. You came back in. I wasn't sure if you could still hear me or not. I just wanted to make sure. So, wow, what a cool story, man. So tell me, what was it like when you said that it dropped from 50 to 30. I know exactly what point you're talking about. And then you decided to keep buying more. Are your parents involved in it at this point?
No, I'm building a house with my dad at that point that I'm living in now. Was still waiting on the wine to age, so I hadn't sold a single bottle. I was basically, I'd say I was fully invested in the winery, like all in, and then I figured out a way to go all in on Bitcoin too, which both of them halfway all in at that point. Uh, Splitting finances, I'm sure both of them would be better off if I hadn't done the other one in the short term. But yeah, I'm building a house with my dad on his property. Like a quarter mile from the house I grew up in, and learning about property rights, all this stuff, Bitcoin podcasts in my ears, going down the complete rabbit hole. Uh, and I think I told him, like, Dad, I think I just bought more wealth than I'll ever make in my life, just buying a little bit of Bitcoin. And he goes, oh no. And he's so again. I mean, like, my dad's a very successful guy, built houses his whole life, is very much like a hard worker. His retirement was, let me buy a farm and work 10 hours on the farm every day. So very, like, tons of respect for what he did. But growing up at the beginning of the boomer generation, and then riding the real estate wave through that, I think leads you to not, and being older generally, leads you to not wanting to question the system that got you to where you are. So it's been a really hard road trying to convince my dad. And I've kind of given up on the hope of him ever understanding Bitcoin. He's just not incentivized to learn to the degree I was.
How does he feel for, like, what he's seeing going on around the world, and how the abuse of the money printer and the printing trillions and trillions of dollars? Is he just like most Americans, where he just thinks that that's, our government's always been able to print money, so I don't think that they understand the difference between what was done back in like the 60s and 70s as far as money printing versus what's being done now? Is there that gap in understanding?
Definitely. It's like a brushing off of the effects of that, or not really believing it's bad. I mean, the point where we talk about, like, my biggest thing with any political thing is, like, he wants, Social Security comes up, and I'm like, well, we're broke, we can't afford it.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, I guess I say something like, we print money. That's not really in his vernacular to afford it. And he goes, yeah, that's fine. And I go, but that's theft. And he's like, I guess I'm okay with that. Don't you want the old people to be fine? And it's just this idea that the state is beneficial, is helpful, and all these things, and we need it to survive. Where what I've really seen in the world, and I live in a small town where most people are self-sufficient, grow their own food, at least in a much larger amount than people anywhere on average in the world. People move here to do that. And what I've seen is when you have a community, people are just extremely helpful and want to help everyone around them because they realize it makes a stronger whole. It's better for them in the long run to have a strong community. And so, I mean, I just see it as like people think the state is the main benefactor and everything, and it is because they have unlimited money. But if we were left to our own devices and people were able to actually save money and build wealth without any theft of it, there would just be a ton of philanthropy going on, and everyone would help each other if there's a core sense of identity of connection. So I feel it in my small town, and it's just, I mean, I think that there's like we want to save this country, but I think there's real argument to say that this country is so big that it's kind of a thing that's in the long run too big to have a centered cultural identity that brings us all together in a place that without just growing continuous force from the government keeps us all together.
What do you think the tipping point's going to be for more people to really wake up who aren't into Bitcoin right now to see the light at the end of the tunnel in Bitcoin?
I think revolutions start with their stomach, right? And people are hungry. And I mean, the first instinct is for the state to come in and feed them, but we've kind of seen reactions, state reactions to emergencies, and those haven't gone that well. So.
Shit, yeah, I couldn't imagine having to get my food cooked by the government. I'd be looking for razor blades and rat poison in it just after what they've done to us. Shit, that'd be the last person you want to feed you. Do you think that we're getting close to that point where the money printer basically runs out of juice? The United States is the only country that's ever been able to amass $34 trillion. I mean, most civilizations collapse before they even get to $1 trillion. And somehow we've kicked this Ponzi scheme and created new instruments and debt markets and shadow banks and offshore accounts. And how much longer do you think this can keep getting kicked down the road before? I mean, 25% of Americans own Bitcoin at this point. If 20% of us became full-on Bitcoiners, where everything that we did was in Bitcoin, the system would implode. Well, at least Jeff Booth thinks so, and I seem to think so as well. So, like, how much longer can they keep doing this to us before people are just like, I'm done?
Well, that's the idea of the intransigent minority and why all your salt is kosher. Because if there's a small group of people, it's as low as like 4 or 5% of the population, if they just don't accept some like with kosher salt, if they just won't buy kosher salt or non-kosher salt and everyone else doesn't really care, then all salt becomes kosher. That's the flipping point. And so, yeah, it's a little bit different with money. It's not just a good, but that's a big reason I put Bitcoin on my labels is I want to brand this as Bitcoin, get it in people's heads, and just have that be a touch point of, hey, this is a high quality good. This is a good thing associated with Bitcoin as opposed to all the bad things they hear about, so that if there is a flip, people have a positive reaction with Bitcoin and less so negative, because I mean, everyone has the first time they thought about buying Bitcoin and they didn't, and now it's up 1,000x from there. So there's always going to be that remorse. But back to your original question, I will never doubt the ability for central bankers, central planners, and all the people in our current system to be able to kick the can down the road a little further, because they've proven their ability to do so. I don't understand it all. I mean, diving into the fiat system is like such a crazy rabbit hole of things not quite making sense, but they just work this way. And so I won't ever doubt their ability to kick the can down the road in that way. But at a certain point, yeah, it will flip and it will stop. And I know all our models will be destroyed in Bitcoin, but my favorite model is the stock to FOMO model, where it goes up and then it starts flattening out and then it goes up again. Sorry, backwards in the video, but
Here, show that again.
basically we've seen okay, so it goes up pretty steep and then flattens out and then goes steep up again.
Yep.
And so because that was really just low market cap, early monetization stage. And then we get to the point where big money is coming in, but it's also a pretty large market cap, and it's not gigantic money coming in. And the returns on Bitcoin start flattening out is the middle chunk, but then the far chunk is Bitcoin just going astronomical, going straight up. And to me, that is less about Bitcoin and more about the destruction of the dollar, which is a positive feedback loop towards more people buying Bitcoin. But once, I mean, we've seen it over, 2020 is probably an inflection point where printers start going up, things started really getting crazy, control started tampering down. And I mean, we're never going back to a world before COVID, just like we're never going back to a world before 9/11. And eventually, I mean, yeah, we'll probably go up a bunch and come back down again, and we'll probably do that a few times. But to me, it just seems like it's just going to keep getting crazier. And so I would say more money printing, which means Bitcoin's going up faster because it's more about the death of the dollar and everyone exiting it.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I get on my shows on LFA TV. When I first started over there, I was like, nobody wanted to talk about Bitcoin. It was my worst performing shows. And now I talk about Bitcoin in almost every show, at least for a few minutes. And it's so interesting seeing so many people that were like, oh, Bitcoin's a scam, I'm never buying Bitcoin. It's like, now what is your option? So what is your solution? You're going to buy a metal that our government's manipulated the price of and, collapse the value of for generations. Like, that's not going to change. I mean, maybe gold goes up a little bit, but it's never going to outperform Bitcoin over a long period of time. So why would you ever want to put your money into something that you can't use as far as like an economic store? I mean, you could use it as a store of value, but it's like, I'm never going to go to you and like, maybe I might barter a bottle of wine off you, but I'm probably going to drastically overpay for it because you probably don't really want my silver if I'm offering you, if you have the opportunity to accept Bitcoin. It just, I don't know. It's so weird that we've been, I guess, brainwashed for so long and born into this with this like fiat slavery mindset that people are so afraid to leave the system that they know behind. But it's like, eventually you have no choice because you continue to get crushed by the government. It's like,
have you found a change in those people that are kind of Bitcoin adjacent? Maybe they're gold bugs, maybe they're just questioning the system. Have you found a change in their attitude towards Bitcoin since the ETF launch?
A lot, yeah, honestly. And I found a bigger change in their attitude when they see that I have silver and gold, right? Like before, I was just a strict Bitcoiner. I couldn't get through to them. But now when I'm like, listen, guys, like I did it. I went out. I took your advice, right? I went and bought 10,000. I was sitting on a big pile of fiat trying to buy this house, and I was just waiting for the market to crash, waiting for a market to crash, and it just wasn't crashing. And I'm sitting on this fiat going, and then we start talking about a reverse market crash. Like they've tried to suck as much liquidity out of the market. They've pretty much done as much damage as they can because if they take out more money, I mean, it's going to be bank crash after bank crash after they can't keep sucking that liquidity out. They haven't got inflation under control. It looks like inflation's going back up. They want to lower rates. They want rate cuts so bad that they're like a junkie, right? And eventually they're going to get those. But is inflation going to be under control? And it doesn't look like it. It went up last time. I think it's going to go up again on the 10th, which is tomorrow, on their next Fed reading. And if it does go up, then they're really in trouble because then they can't lower rates without everybody knowing that they failed, right? Like Jerome Powell will be the biggest failure in central banking history. So once they started to see that I had it, I think that's when they're like, oh, wow, okay, wait, he does have some of that. Like he understands that, the precious metal game a little bit. And now they're like, okay, they get it, right? Like they're really starting to comprehend. Like I had to go to 4 different pawn shops. Every single place in my town was sold out of gold and silver. So I had to waste all this gas going from one to the next. They're all out. Every place that you go to buy gold was out. And I started calling around. And then after like 4 days, I found one. And then I had to drive all the way out there. I had to put down a deposit. I had to come back. I had to go back and get my gold and silver. I paid a big premium for getting coinage versus just regular silver, right? And then I was just like, if our government gets really tyrannical and I have to flee this country, right? And I'm trying to make it through a military checkpoint, this is going bye-bye. Like they're gonna tear your car apart. They're gonna search for everything because they have the ability to take it. The law's on their side. They don't care if you leave the country. But good luck getting out there with $200,000 in gold and silver. It's just not gonna happen. So that was like a really big inflection point where I'm like, you might be fleeing this country at some point. Like it's getting so bad. They've let 40 million military age males into this country. 10,000 are coming across the border every single day. That is a standing Marine battalion that marches across our border. These are high T alpha males, and they're fucking bad dudes. And they're coming across our border, and look at our country. Like 87% obesity rate. Like, we're fat, we're lethargic, we're slow, we're unhealthy. Half the people can't even do a fucking push-up or a pull-up. They go home and they drown their sorrows away with drugs or alcohol every single night. Like, we're in trouble, buddy. So, like, you know, where do you want to protect your wealth? In an asset that's the first ever non-corruptible asset or creation in human history, or do you want to store it in some metal? I mean, it's up to you. But I think that when they really start to think it through, they go, yeah, okay, like that's the fiat slavery mindset of this was your only option for what, like 5,000 years, was to go to precious metals, because man had never created a superior form of money than this. Well, it's created now, and it's just like the internet. How many people oppose the internet? I played the video of like 1993 of people, they go to Burger King, like Visa goes to Burger King, and everybody's like, oh, this piece of plastic, I'm not gonna, I mean, it sounds cool, but I mean, are people, I hope it doesn't slow me down, right? Like their day is so important, and they can't be slowed down for 2 seconds to wait for a transaction to confirm, you know? And then you see the Lightning Network, and I pull out my phone, and I was telling my doctor, she's like, well, how do I was talking to her yesterday. She goes, well, how do I accept it? I go, I come in, we set up your own node, you have your own Lightning wallet, and we get you in set running on the Lightning Network, and I bring my phone and I tap yours, and boom, it's like instant, and you have Bitcoin in your wallet. And it's like, she's like, oh, it's really that easy? I'm like, it's really that easy. So it's like, I think that shift, like once we show people that you can set up a Lightning wallet, you can store your Bitcoin in it, you can go into stores and you can pay for it, people don't care what they pay. You don't care if you pay with your debit card, your credit card, you don't care if you pay with your quarters or your dollar bills. You just want to go in and buy your shit and come out. But when you get your paycheck, you want your paycheck to be paid. You want the wealth that you're trading for your energy that you've put in. You want to get something of value that can actually store the value for the hours you worked. You don't want it to, you know, somebody to pay you $5,000 this week, and then next week you can only buy $4,000 worth of goods with it, you know? So I think it's just going to be that there's more and more people getting used to it, and almost like being forced to use it, right? Like you're at a point now where you have no choice but to save in Bitcoin, in my personal opinion. I don't know if you found another better way to save your money. You know, you dove down the financial rabbit hole better, but there's not.
No, there's not a better way. And back to what you said about gold bugs and silver bugs getting in, is they need to see that similar person to them jumping into Bitcoin to see, oh, it's okay for me because this guy understands what I understand. And that is especially hard for so many people. And it's true for me. Like, I didn't get into Bitcoin when I lived with a Bitcoiner until I lived with a different Bitcoiner who shared a lot of other similarities to me. And so anything we can do, I think, I put myself out there as a Bitcoiner, and I totally understand and respect people who want to go anonymous and are wanting to really protect their long-term identity with that. But I'm in the save this country camp, not wanting to flee. I live in a place that is super resilient, as in everyone has guns, grows their own food, and has a sense of community. But there is still always going to be a ton of division. And I don't want that division to be a have and have not, especially when it comes to Bitcoin. So I think anything we can do to help educate the people around us in ways that, like, just show similarities. I'm into Bitcoin. You should maybe get a little bit too. I mean, I got all my friends to buy a little bit of Bitcoin. They're not as all in as me, but they have a little bit, and at least they won't feel totally left out. So, like, anything I can do to just build the Bitcoin brand in a positive light and connect it to a real world thing that people can connect with and be like, oh, hey, this winery is successful. Weird. They have a Bitcoin logo on all their bottles. I wonder what that means. And then they just have a positive association, because if we as Bitcoiners want to stay in the United States and live the positive life that Bitcoin gains can give you, we need positive community to be around. And I think that's pretty hard in any city you're going to live in. So yeah, there's the idea of the citadel of people moving away and living in their own place, but it's going to be hard and it's going to be scary. And every little thing we can do to just bring a couple more people in is super positive. And yeah, people will be forced to do so, but it's, hey, this system isn't working for me. Do I turn more towards the state? Do I turn towards Bitcoin? Do I turn towards, oh, Tesla stock's going up a ton? I mean, there's tons of different ways to look, and it's just the clear system of Bitcoin only, the clear idea of that, just make it simple, is I think it's the right way to go, is just Bitcoin only.
I couldn't agree more, man. And I think Jeff Booth says it best, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you do inside their system. Even if you are shouting at their system, you are supporting it. You are strengthening their system. You make it stronger every time that you interact with it. So the only way is to literally just withdraw from the corrupt economy. And I think that that's what you're doing. Now, you had talked a little bit about when you know, it's taken you how many years, 2 years to really get this wine business and for the wine to ferment and for you to get these bottles manufactured and everything kind of this, you're launching your first batch right now, correct?
No, I'm 5 years in now, so, 3 years into
Oh,
sales, entering my 4th year of sales, but throughout that whole time, there's really this maturing process of didn't have enough wine the first year, had to release wine early the next year, and so I've been sort of pairing everything out, being as patient as possible, and just now I'm hitting the point where I have a ton of wine that is properly aged, finally.
so
So, yeah, it's been a 5-year
walk me through the
process.
beginning.
Mhm.
I want to hear the very beginning. So
Yeah,
when did so when did you start the winery? What year? And walk me through it.
2019. Yeah, so
2019.
2019, I was living in Denver and working as a geologist, and didn't knew that that wasn't the future for me, because I'd have to go work for the government, and I knew even at that point I didn't want to go work for the government. But just had a call with my dad, like normal, just talked about for some reason the business of winemaking came up, and like, this is how much it costs to make a bottle, this is how much you could sell it for, and for me, some reason that clicked. And so within a month, I was filing all the paperwork to get a liquor license while I still had my full-time job. And then I just commuted 5 hours back home to my parents' place to make wine for 2 months the first year, and then back to my full-time job in Denver, and then would commute back once a month for that first year. Um, when After working at a job that you hate for a little while and having a side business that's going to be something big, you don't want to stay at that job anymore. So had the opportunity to
Been there.
build a house on my family's property with my dad, and did that. Moved home. Scary to move home to your hometown of 2,000 people, but went for it, and I'm so happy I did. It happened to be right when the COVID lockdowns happened, so it was the perfect time to leave the city anyway.
Hmm.
And built the house with my dad during that period.
Oh, that was
And
expensive, huh? Wood was not cheap
well,
during COVID, or did you get it right before it
we
went up?
we timed it. We basically had the framing done right as the lumber prices went crazy, so
No
it was
shit.
perfect. Yeah, things just work out. But yeah, so finished that, and then that next summer was the first year I had wine ready. So sold that at a couple farmers markets during the summer. Didn't have a ton of wine, and like I said, I was a first time winemaker. So that first year, I had a bunch of wine go bad or made mistakes that pushed it to the next year. But sold out of what I had. I had proof of concept finally after 2 years of being in it, uh, to push me further. But then even that winter, I still like was waiting on wine to age. Had to go get a job at a restaurant. Moved back the next summer, sold at farmers markets, and that first year, I had one person ask me, "Do you accept crypto for your wine?" And I was learning about. I had Bitcoin at that time. I was learning about it for sure, but I wasn't like expecting. I had not oriented the winery to be a Bitcoin winery at all. And I remember he said, "Do you accept crypto?" And I was like, "No, I'll take your Bitcoin." And he just walked away. He didn't buy anything with it. But the next summer, I got a Bitcoin accepted here sign and put it up, and didn't really have many Bitcoin sales, but a few. And that was really cool. It was really gratifying actually. Like it's a really much deeper connection with my customers when you share that thing with them, because I remember this one woman came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, you accept Bitcoin? I have to go get my husband." And so a little while later, she like walks up and like introduces her husband, who now is a good friend. Like we talk all the time, but it was clear that he'd been in Bitcoin a long time. She'd heard everything. It was just like, I need my husband to have someone to talk to about Bitcoin right now. Please talk to him. But he bought him. He like wasn't even a big wine drinker. Bought a bunch of wine just to support me because he wants to see that Bitcoin business go through the world, and a few more interactions like this, I was like, okay, I should really start accepting Bitcoin and make that easier. So then the next year, I changed my sign from Bitcoin accepted here to Bitcoin preferred, because I feel like that makes a bit more of a statement. Um, I don't really want to be passive about Bitcoin. I want to be proactive. So that, plus just posting a little bit more about it on Twitter, having more time in the Bitcoin community, led to a bunch more people buying in Bitcoin. And the last winter was the first time that I didn't have to go get another job to support myself through this wine journey. Because I mean, I've had 3 years out of wine production invested the entire time while I'm trying to buy Bitcoin. It's been like this very thin margins of survival mode
Yeah.
as far as my personal finances go for a long time, because Bitcoin is so long term, and I didn't buy at the bottom, I bought at the top. So I've done both, but have not seen the massive gains yet. And then wine is obviously slow moving. So it's been super fun, and the connections with wine and Bitcoin, of them being so slow builders, but the payoff is incredible, have been pretty awesome to bring those things together. So I think Bitcoiners really vibe with that journey, and I'm just a Bitcoiner too who had a winery. So uh, it's been pretty cool to be like accepted within the Bitcoin community as one of them, as the wine guy, right from the beginning. It's been a very accepting community to join. So
Yeah, you touched on that. You're like, when I accepted that first Bitcoin, it meant a little bit more to me. And is that because you're actually accepting true wealth, like true value, true energy from the person? It's almost like they're trading their energy for your energy in an equal exchange, where when somebody's paying you in dollars, they're trading this thing that was printed out of thin air that they were basically a slave to get. And now they're being forced to use it and turn it over. Can you tell me about that first transaction, what you were explaining there?
yeah, it's the energy is a really good way of putting it, because it's not the value. It's not like the current value of the thing. It's when someone pays me in Bitcoin, I know how much that Bitcoin means to them. And so I can feel the value that they're giving me. And if I were just converting that to fiat to pay my bills, it wouldn't mean that much. But I very much keep all the Bitcoin in sales transactions for myself. So it's so valuable for them. It's so valuable for me. We both understand it and see that value, that, yeah, it's an honor to get paid in Bitcoin. I mean, yeah, most people get paid in fiat and they just have to convert to Bitcoin, and that's cool. You buy your own Bitcoin. But like, when someone else values your work enough to pay you in Bitcoin, it's a pretty amazing feeling to, yeah, you finally really feel valued, even though it's the same like monetary value in the moment. It's the thing that you value so much more. Getting paid in that is pretty honorable. And it's also like, I feel the love, man. When someone pays me in Bitcoin, they're like legitimately care about me. They care about my business. They want me to succeed. And so I've become a proponent of vote with your money. Yeah, vote by opting out, but also vote by buying the things that you care about and existing in the future. So whenever I have a decision to make on what to buy, I'm either buying local or I'm buying from a Bitcoiner, because I want the Bitcoin's business to succeed, but I also want my local area to succeed, because they're both super important to me. So yeah, vote with my money by buying with Bitcoin, by opting out, but also by supporting the businesses I want to see succeed. And there's no better way to do that than by spending Bitcoin.
Man, that was an excellent way to put that. I couldn't have said it any better. So walk me through, you went to a point where now you're doing this special reserve. And is this Satoshi's reserve? Is this the batch? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Satoshi's reserve. So what I did is yeah, that's a, yes. What I
You can show
did
us too if you got
is
one.
I got one right here, but it's definitely better in the pictures.
Oh, that's sweet.
But yeah, so Satoshi's Reserve is the best barrel from my 2021 vintage. So I made this wine 3 years ago, and have been waiting on this day. I mean, I'm releasing this on auction today at 3 p.m. Eastern, and I've been waiting for this day for 3 years, because go down this Bitcoin rabbit hole, you start selling your wine for Bitcoin, I want to do a bottle that is for Bitcoiners. And this wine, these first 21 bottles in this auction, you can only buy with Bitcoin, which feels great to say because it's with regulations, with having online. But this is the best barrel from my 2021 vintage. And I just wanted to give an ode to Satoshi, kind of make it special for Bitcoiners because it's been a really I mean, life-changing journey to dive down to Bitcoin. I want my wine to really dive into Bitcoin as well. And I sell to a lot of normal people, and I can't just do all of my wines to be Bitcoin branded, but to do something really special and wait on it for 3 years and then finally have it released is pretty awesome. And getting paid in Bitcoin for it is just the icing on the cake.
Man, that is so freaking cool. So if you guys come over the website right now, if you guys want to get in on this auction, it looks like it starts in 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 45 seconds. The website is scarce.city. That is SCARCE.city, CITY. So you guys can swing over there and get in on this auction. So there's 21 of this first batch, or is this a specific limited edition? There will only ever be 21 of this batch.
There's 210 bottles in total. The first 21 I'm releasing via auction. Those will obviously be a little bit higher collectible value. Each bottle is numbered and signed by me, and the rest of the 210 will be released at the time of the halving. So winning the auction for one of these first 21 is the only way to get a bottle in time for the halving. I've got a lot of people wanting to drink this bottle to celebrate the halving. So this is the only way to do that. And then the rest will release at the halving, and maybe you'll hold it for 4 years. It'll get even better and you'll drink it at the next halving.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking like, 20 years from now, like what the value of one of these original 21 bottles would be if you held it for 21 years from now, or something crazy like that. How cool this is, man. And so I don't know. I don't even know how this feeling to put your life work into something and it turn out to be something of so much value, and it just builds those connections with people, and it makes your community better. It makes yourself better. I mean, it makes the world better. And I think that's what Bitcoin represents. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm still honestly figuring that out to a degree, but that's just to say that I've just hit the first bit of finally like feeling success with the winery, feeling up on my Bitcoin finally. And so all these things that I've invested my complete life's energy into are just starting to pan out. So in 5 years, I focus less on the business and not on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's kind of just the underlying given in my life. But I focus on the next big thing I want to build as a family and raise kids in this house that I built and in the town that I grew up in. So in 5 years, I more picture myself as either getting married or a young dad in that way, and building my family to enter the community.
And there's no greater joy in life than being a father. I'll tell you that personally. I mean, it's been the greatest joy in my life. And I think everybody has that same feeling. And I wish looking back now that I would have known what I knew back then, because I would have did it different. I would have had a lot more kids, and maybe I still will. Right. But, that the way that we were raised to, the things just kept getting tougher and tougher, because you saved in fiat, and sometimes it's like you want to bring a kid in the world, but you want to give them more than you had. Right. And you kind of think you're going to get into a better spot, and you're going to get into a better spot. But when you're saving in fiat, like the government and the money printer is going burr, you're always, no matter how much harder you work, no matter how much more money you make, you're never getting ahead. Right. You're always just keeping up with inflation. And then like, I didn't realize that. So it's like, I kept trying to save more and think I was going to be in a better position. But now looking back, it's like, I didn't need more money. I needed to have more kids and raise a family and stay home more. And I hope that's what the younger generation, do you think the younger generation is starting to go in that direction, that we're starting to learn that, like, all these women out there like that were like all this pro feminism and like, we're going to be independent women and go get a good job. And now they're really realizing like, shit, I don't want to sit in an office for 60 hours a week and not raise kids,
Yeah. I think people are opting out of the traditional like employment system in a lot of ways. I mean, they're seeing the freedom that just the internet influencing has brought people. And I mean, who knows the full direction, pendulums swing back the other way for sure. But as just we've opted out of that slavery complex in a large degree. I mean, there's no totally escaping it because we live within that society, but life is getting easier for us. More people will see that and want to opt out and have life get easier for them. And just seeing how my perspective of the world completely changed once I saw that, and meeting so many other people similarly, I think that as more people opt out, we just get we get diverging systems because the one just keeps getting worse, but then everyone else sees their life just continually getting better and wanting to
Mhm.
build community and build connections and everything. And yeah, I think people are opting out of all the ideas in that. So yeah, the wage slavery, the horrible job, the working there for 60 years, no one in my generation or younger wants to do that. It seems like I'm 30. No one in their 20s seems to want to do that. They all want to build the independent wealth. And yeah, it's impossible without opting out, I would say. But we have tools
Totally.
beyond Bitcoin to opt out in just like social media, being able to spread your voice more than any other time in history. And all these things are so young that we haven't really seen where they are going or where they will go. So it's a crazy time, man. The whole world's changing, and with Bitcoin as my constant and the thing that's not changing, it's really easy to sit back and enjoy the changes as opposed to being super afraid of them.
I think you're right, man. And I like what you said about the influencers and the time that we have in social media because 4 years ago there weren't I wouldn't say there were no, but there were very few women championing Bitcoin. And now I'm getting online and you're starting to see a lot more women. Very few are Bitcoin only. A lot of them are these crypto bro girls where they're promoting whatever shitcoin and Solana because it sounds cool and they can overtalk and sound intelligent. But I'm starting to see the Bitcoin only females starting to enter the space. And I think I think that when we see that wave of females get in here and just, like guys are going to want to be cool, right? They're going to want to pick up the girls, and like the more girls that I think we get into this space, and I think eventually that will be that turning, like that pendulum shifting is when we have a bunch of girls in this space that are really championing Bitcoin, and guys are looking at it from not even the outlook of like from like a monetary standpoint, but just from the thinking with the wrong head kind of thing, and they're just wanting to impress girls, and then you're going to see everybody's life change as soon as you start saving in Bitcoin. Your life changes and it becomes better. So then it's like if you have to be tricked to get into Bitcoin, but you get into Bitcoin, you win, right?
Mhm.
There's no other really industry in the world that you can get in and you can instantly align your incentives with so many people. And I think that's what Bitcoin does. It doesn't matter if you're a farmer. It doesn't matter if you're a politician. It doesn't matter if you're big pharma or if you're just a peasant on the street. The second that you start saving in Bitcoin, your values automatically align with everybody in the network. And that's, you want to see Bitcoin win. Do you think there's any
Yeah,
chance
that's
that it doesn't? Do you think there's any chance that like our government becomes so tyrannical that they can prevent Americans from participating in this?
definitely. I mean, they control the on ramps and off ramps in the like overt system. And this is the thing of like, get your friends on Bitcoin because, yeah, if they cut off those on ramps and off ramps and you still want to transact in Bitcoin, your friends better already be there. Or anyone you work with, any business you want to support, better already be there. And yeah, then your incentives align. That's why we need a critical mass of Bitcoiners. That's why we need to spread Bitcoin so much. And the ETF could be seen as the powers that be giving up on allowing people to own Bitcoin, but it's not. It's I think you dive deeper into what ownership is, and it's I think an attack on actual ownership of Bitcoin. Now they control the on and off ramps. You can't transact anonym, pseudonymous anonymously, or they own your Bitcoin. They hold your keys, and so I don't know. I want to get my friends and my community, everyone I care about, to actually hold their own keys and buy it that way, so that if there is an attack on actual ownership of Bitcoin, that they'll be safe, they'll be better off in the long run. But what you said there about aligning incentives is so true. I mean, even another winemaker in Bitcoin that I know is like, I don't feel like he's really stepping on my turf because we're all kind of here to win together. And
Yep.
Bitcoin is the only real like you get there first and you keep it forever. It's the only I'm forgetting the term there, but um, first mover advantage
Yeah.
that you can't lose. It's just with you forever. So and then back to the thing you were saying about women in Bitcoin, I think that's hilarious and totally right on. But where my head went is the differentiation between Bitcoin that they don't want to take that huge risk on a guy. They want a guy that's kind of a sure thing. Yeah, successful, but they're not venture fund investors in men. And
Mhm.
so when that switch gets flipped to where it's not, I see crypto as risky and Bitcoin as the sure thing. I want a guy that's in Bitcoin. I think that is a massive flip in the way that Bitcoin is seen in the world. And I mean, a lot of us, we
You're
think
right.
that
That's so
men
true,
are
dude.
leaders, and men are definitely leaders, but man, the women decide so much. And when that gets flipped and they just start seeing Bitcoin as the sure thing, and oh, he's in crypto, that's crazy, that's risky. We're like, through dating that I've been into Bitcoin, it's like, oh, Bitcoin, that's probably crazy, that's scary. I mean, but also the price was tanking. I get it,
Yup.
but if you bought Bitcoin just a little bit before I did, you were still up. So who cares? So yeah, I don't know. Where's your head on that? Because I
No,
think that
dude,
that's
you fucking nailed that one, man. I think that, yeah, there's gonna come a time. It's like the girls that wear the shirts that say "guy" or yeah, anti-vaxxers get more pussy, and like, and as soon as like the guys start realizing that like owning a whole Bitcoin becomes like rocking like the ultimate Rolex. It's the biggest flex in the world because you're a one coiner, right? And somebody will create a device that allows you to only show off, it'll only display if you have one Bitcoin on it, right? So it'll be like a status symbol, and girls will be like, oh, he's got a Bitcoin, right? He's a Bitcoiner. I think it becomes that paradigm shift is when every single dude that has a Maserati or a Benz or a Bentley or whatever, Rolls Royce, like that's cool. You got a car, but what can you do with it? This guy's got a Bitcoin, and that's generational wealth, right? And like that can support a family because he's a Bitcoiner. And I think that it's gonna be a cool paradigm shift. I don't think we're far away from it. How far do you think we are away from? Like
well,
you're
that'll
explaining that. Where do
especially
you think we're
be
at in your you're explaining the what is that, the Plan B's
the
or is it
stock to
hyper
FOMO.
stock to flow?
That's
Yeah, where
not
do you
Plan
think we're
B,
at
but
in that?
stock to FOMO. It's not Plan B specifically. Um, but I think we're nearing the inflection point where we really start going up. But I also, and so like, I think the time of diminish, or I think we passed the inflection point. I think this cycle, in my estimation, no expert, and all of my models will be broken. But I think that this cycle was kind of the inflection point where we had the top cut off potentially by the China mining ban and just a lot of games being played in the crypto and Bitcoin markets that went belly up. And I think we stop seeing the depreciating the declining gains per cycle, and I think we start going up from here. But I don't think this is a runaway train just yet. I mean, this is like, people have heard about Bitcoin in 2017. At least that's the first time. That's the first time I remember like actually having a conversation about it. In 2011 or 2014 or something, I was 16. I looked it up. Not buying that. Can't buy it honestly.
Yeah.
But um, people heard about it maybe in 2017, 2018. People heard about it in 2021. People will hear about it this time and they'll be like, "Oh, I missed out." But I think it's going to be like the fourth time they hear about it in a serious way. Their friends got in and did well. Maybe they get in this cycle, maybe they get in the next cycle, but it's like, man, if you don't get in the next couple, it's you might be missing out. I mean, like missing out, whatever. You get into Bitcoin, you're good, but like missing out on the real returns as opposed to just having the benefit of saving in an asset that can't be depreciated. So no matter how long you wait, yeah, you still get the benefit of Bitcoin. What we're getting the benefit of is being early and riding the monetization wave of Bitcoin. But everyone will get to experience the benefit of just better money.
And I think you're right too, and I think that like you said, the when you start learning about and value of Bitcoin, like everything that Bitcoin represents almost aligns with like a real conservative, like true sovereignty, like taking ownership of your wealth, like little government, lot like big freedom. And so like you start adopting Bitcoin, and it kind of like pulls that wool back from behind your, like you start to see behind the curtain. You're like, wow, that Wizard of Oz, dude, that's not really what's going on around here. Like everything I was told was a lie. So you really start to question it. You went through that cycle. I think I went through that cycle. And I think everybody kind of will eventually go through this realization of like everything revolves around their control of the money printer. So it seems like such a simple solution for me to just go, I'm just going to withdraw. I think it's John Galt, right? Who says like when the game is rigged, no matter how you play it, you're going to lose. There's only one option. It's not to play the game, right? Like don't be a martyr, right? Be a winner. And I think Michael Zeller says that in one of his speeches as well, right? Like you never win a war by dying for your country. You win a war by making the other dumb motherfucker die for his country. So like we're at a point right now, the Titanic has hit the iceberg, right? It is sinking, that being the US dollar. There's all these life rafts. Everybody on the Titanic could have made it onto a life raft, but a majority of people were running around the dining rooms trying to steal the fucking gold silverware and weight on their pockets as they're getting ready to go into a freezing cold ocean instead of worrying about getting the women and the children on the boats, you know? And I don't think it'll take much more convincing, right? What happened since COVID was the biggest eye opener to so many people who are just like, wow. I mean, the thing that's going on, I mean, just Google or get on TikTok if you get a chance and search not paying taxes 2024 and just scroll. I've never seen anything like, I mean, people are so afraid to talk about not paying their taxes. And now people are like, fuck you. Every single person on there like owes money, like a lot of money. You pay taxes on sales tax, property tax, income tax, your real estate, your death tax, your inheritance tax. Every gallon of gas has a specific tax on top of it, or you pay sales tax, but they're already putting a gas tax on the tax, which takes it up by, if you live in California, gosh, it's like, 50% or more is going right to the government. And then you get your bill from the cable company and it's like, okay, here's my bill, but there's this charge, there's surcharge, there's SUR fees, there's this and that. It's because those agencies have to pay regulators, and the regulators are just getting another tax on you. So even though it says like, protection against, surge protection or wild forest fire prevention or whatever the line is there where you're paying an extra $10 out of your cable bill. You're like, I didn't sign up for wildfire protection. Oh, it's mandatory. You got to pay it, right? And then it just goes right into the regular agency that created that law. And people are fed up, man. The system can't take it much longer. And I mean, not paying your taxes, I mean, they're just going to go print the money, right? So, I mean, I get it. I'm a supporter of it. Whatever you want to do, it's your money. I think you're getting taxed to death. And I do think there's going to come an inflection point. So walk me through the process of accepting Bitcoin. You see there's some regulations because it's alcohol and you have to kind of tiptoe around the line. Are you able to run your own node and just accept Bitcoin payments and only accept Bitcoin payments? Or what are the laws on that?
It's not necessarily the laws. It's really the alcohol regulations. So I have to have a liquor license in each state to be able to ship to each state, because technically if you buy wine in Michigan, that sale off my website, that sale technically occurs in Michigan. So when I ship you the wine, I have to have a license in Michigan to be able to do so. As a small winery, having 50 liquor licenses is not realistic, both for the bureaucracy and the payments. So what I use is a third-party compliance company that essentially I act as a fulfiller for them. So like they're my middleman. If you bought wine off my website, you are technically buying wine from them. And then I fulfill the order. So it's really this middleman that is not into Bitcoin. For all the attempts I've had, I've asked, so many times, and I want to go use a different company, but there's really only one. They have the control over the middle for smaller wineries. And until they are able to accept Bitcoin, which slow moving, understandably, I experience a lot of people wanting to buy wine with Bitcoin from me, but most businesses don't. So until I can get them overboard, it's hard for me to accept Bitcoin directly online. I could set up a node or I could set up a payments channel and just accept directly online. But then every single one of those transactions, I have to then go in and manually input into the system that allows me to ship alcohol into those states. So, and even that, you start to get into a gray area. I'm sure it's not necessarily legal if it is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So let's not talk about that.
So I stay away from that. But in person, I just accept with a Lightning wallet. A lot of people come up and offered, I offered 10% off for Bitcoin sales. So I think going forward, I think a little bit more. I don't think we're quite there, but I may phrase that as a fiat surcharge instead of a Bitcoin discount. But one day.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. A fiat surcharge. I like the sounds of that, man. I really do.
I
So
think we
how
got
much
to have a little bit more Bitcoin acceptance in the mainstream because most of it of people coming through, but I get a lot of like two girls walking by elbowing each other like, oh my god, Bitcoin, tell your brother. And then a lot of 55 to 70-year-olds coming up and telling me to be careful about Bitcoin. And then they ask, why do you like it? And I say, I like its monetary policy more. And they say, what is that? So there's just a lack of understanding, and we'll
Yeah.
get there. But I think we may get to a point where, yeah, maybe everyone owns it in their IRA or 401k and just has a little bit of more of a touch point there. And I'll be able to talk a little bit more shit about fiat and say fiat surcharge. But right
Yep.
now, I kind of just want any of their money for my wine. So we'll see.
For sure, man. For sure. How is it in your town? We'll wrap it up on this one. I know we're going over that hour mark, and I want to be respectful of your time. What is it like in your town? Are you seeing more vendors? Have you gone? Every store I go into every day, I buy something. I'm like, hey, can I pay with Bitcoin? I know they're not going to accept it. I know they're going to say no, but I just want to be that guy that's constantly in there. Can I pay with this for Bitcoin? Can I pay for this with Bitcoin? Can I pay for this with Bitcoin? And every once in a while, I walk into somewhere that does, and I'm like, sweet, cool. Every chance I get, I go by there and I just buy a stick of gum or anything that I can just to pay with Bitcoin. What's that like in your town?
So I'm in a small town of 2,000 people, so it's a little bit of a different world than any city. But there's no stores that accept Bitcoin. I have my rancher accepts Bitcoin, so I pay him for beef in Bitcoin,
There you go.
and a couple other friends that are into Bitcoin here, but none of the stores do. I eventually, when I have my own tasting room opened up, I'll definitely be like advertising Bitcoin. And when it's my space, when it's at a farmer's market, it's a little bit different. But when it's my space, I can, have Bitcoin paraphernalia anywhere,
Yeah.
maybe a Bitcoin ATM to get people on board. But it's, yeah, it's slow moving. But I think we see people like thought it was dead, man. It's crazy how people thought it was dead when it dropped to 15K, and now it's back up, and they're still in the. So many people that have asked me about it because they know I'm so into it is like, oh yeah, it's at 40K. No, it's at 70, and they're like, mind is blown that it's back to previous
Cool.
all-time highs because they just assumed that you lost all your money and you only bought the top. I
Yeah.
mean, I did,
It,
but a lot
I
of
did.
people didn't.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of us did, man. I think that's the coolest thing about it is once you really understand what it is, it doesn't really matter where you buy it. You actually want it to come down. It's a really weird concept. You want your investment to lose money as long as it's not all you have, right? Like there's definitely those people who only have a couple $1,000, they put it in and they got no more to put in, right? So it sucks when that goes down because they really wanted it to make value and change their life, but it will, right? You just have to figure out a way to mine more fiat. And once you do, and you keep allocating to it, it's just eventually grayscale is going to run out. Like Bitcoin would be much higher than 70 something thousand right now if we didn't have that constant sell pressure from grayscale. It almost is like grayscale is doing it on purpose. You can't wrap your head around why you'd want to lose that first mover advantage and lose so much of your Bitcoin over
Yeah.
what? Like it's not like you don't have competition. Like, and that's the free market at play. But it's like I think they're doing that. I think grayscale has got, they're really close to the U.S. government. They're really close with Circle. They're really close with these, quote unquote, what I think are just central bank digital currencies, like these stable coins. I like Tether. I don't despise Tether, but I despise USDC and all these other Circle stable coins. And I don't know. I just think that that eventually that sell pressure stops, and when it does, I think we're going to straight rip. But I don't know where the sell pressure will come from. Right, we're gonna the halving happens, so the amount of rewards that get reduced down from 900 down to 450. So that's a huge amount of less Bitcoin going out there. Grayscale is the only one who seems to be selling. I don't think any of these other ETFs are going to start selling, in my personal opinion, but I could be wrong.
Well, it depends on who owns them. Some of those people will be rebalancing, but we haven't even got to the point where the ETFs are included in all these funds that are actively managed and rebalanced. So that rebalancing pressure is more of a future problem than a current one, because it's just not as deep into those things. I mean, some of it will happen always. It's a different class of investors that are getting into it than the, hodl forever people. But really, it's just the price that is the sell pressure. I mean, the price is an attack on Bitcoin holders that want to have nicer things, which, I understand. It's your money. Go buy that yacht or whatever you want. Spend your Bitcoin. But it's really like, maybe we see a top and at 500K is a lot of money for people. That's a life. All these rises are insane money, but like, you bring in the next class of holders is bigger and they see that next rise, but ultimately, eventually that'll change. And I mean, all these models keep breaking, and I really do think that the next one to break could be the 4-year cycle. I mean, the halving, it has a big impact on Bitcoin, but every time we go through a halving, it has less of an impact because there's less coins being changed, and nothing you can do. I mean, it's maybe we get out of the 4-year cycle. Maybe it's self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's just going to be fun to watch this time, because I'm not scrambling to add to my position where I was just figuring it out during the last bull run. Was scared that it was going to go to infinity, because it's illogical that Bitcoin is not at infinity already. So it had to be there. And now I've had a full bear market to build a position and feel comfortable with where I'm at. And I'm excited to watch this as a passenger instead of trying to jump onto the plane.
Man, God bless you, Ben. This was such a great conversation, man. I encourage everybody to go over, and if you guys are into Bitcoin and you guys want to, grab yourself a bottle of Satoshi's Reserve, I think that this is going to be a great, not just an investment, but a way to, join and become part of the community. So swing over to scarce.city, and you guys can get in on this auction. Swing down and below in the description. Swing over to Twitter and follow Ben. Again, Ben, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Is there any other parts of your business or companies or anything else you wanted to shout out? Oh, yeah, your website. Tell us about your website really quick, and I'll pull that up. I had that up here on the website as well.
Yeah, so my website is peonylanewine.com, PEONYLANE, and I ship all over the United States. It's all natural wine, so no additives, nothing that's going to make you feel bad afterwards. That's the benefit of natural wine, is you don't get a hangover after drinking it, which is kind of mind-blowing and crazy, but it's amazing
drink wine
in that way. Yeah, so a lot of people feel horrible after drinking wine, but I've realized that that's the sulfites, that's the other toxic additives that are used to change the flavor, texture, taste, and without any of that, when it's literally just the grapes, you don't get hungover, you don't get headaches, you feel great. So that's the wine I make. I ship it all over the United States, and just shoot me a message if you're ever curious about what to order. But it's all great on there.
Well, I'm going to get on your website and order a bottle for my uncle, because he's really big into wine. And every time I drink wine, I get the worst hangover. So I don't even like the thought of it just makes me not ever want to drink it. But now I'm so curious. I'm going to have to order him a bottle and then maybe go over and share it with him one night. And greatly appreciate you, Ben. I want to play this promo video that you had made about your winery. So I'm going to wrap it up after that. So if you want to jump out of here and take off, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show, man. Greatly appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
God bless you, buddy.
A hands-off natural winemaking process. It's stewarding the grapes, trying to let them speak for themselves, not telling them what to do, but putting them in a place to succeed. My name is Ben. I'm the owner and vintner at Peony Lane Winery in Paonia, Colorado. Winemaking has like a balance of art and science. There's a certain level of both that you always have to be a part of, but I would say natural winemaking is leaning more into the art phase of it, where in each phase of the winemaking process, I'm focused on the chemical aspects of it, how the wine's changing, testing stuff, but I'm putting the grapes physically in positions to succeed along the way. So pick the grapes, crush them, let them ferment with their wild yeast, and then move that wild fermentation into a barrel, keep it protected from the elements, protected from oxygen. You can guide it in more ways, you can do more manipulations. I've found that just with a healthy vineyard, it's gonna be a much more beautiful wine if you just let nature do its thing. West Elk's AVA is the highest AVA in North America, ranging from about 5,600 feet to over 7,000. with high elevation wines, really vibrant acidity, a lot of electric fruit flavors. That's all from the high altitude that you can't get in a low elevation scenario. So the mountains really shine through in these wines. Generally, conventional winemaking, maybe you have an end destination in mind, but you have a little bit more control over what the wine becomes. You can change the flavor, taste, texture, all those things. With natural winemaking, for the most part, you're just along for the ride. Colorado wines are as vibrant as the mountains around them, and they're their own thing. People understand what they can be, what they are, what grows well here, what style the wine is. Colorado wines are really coming into their own right now. They're high altitude wines like so few places in the world. They're vibrant, they're crisp. If you like wine, you'll love Peony Lane. Discover the undiscovered wines of Colorado.
Oh, there it is. My mic wasn't working. Thank you guys so much for stopping by the channel. Hopefully you guys have a great day. God bless you. Swing over to Ben's website. Check out that wine. Order yourself a bottle. Order one for your friends and family. Test it out. And then tag me over on social media if you do. I would love to hear what you think. God bless you.